Hey, Chandler here with the Daily Movie News Roundup. Something dropped that I just had to talk about it as soon as I heard about it. It's pretty straightforward. The Hollywood Reporter is reporting that WB is in the early stages of developing a reboot of The Matrix. And this isn't some gossip magazine, this isn't some message board, this isn't coming from 4chan or whatever else, something where these sorts of stories normally come from. This is coming from the Hollywood Reporter. They have actual sources, they do actual legitimate research, and they had quite a few details in the report on this. So with that said, what did they kind of mention in here? First off, Michael B. Jordan is kind of the person they've got eyed to be the new Neo, replacing Keanu Reeves in it. In early stages, a lot can change, but that's the person that they eyed to be looking at to star in it. Zach Penn, who worked on the Avengers script. He worked on many comic book movies throughout the years. He recently did the adaptation of Ready Player One that comes out. I don't remember if it's later this year or early next year. So this is kind of a pretty good, solid screenwriter to come in to work on the script. And then it also kind of speculated on some of the other things they looked at with the project and they're thinking about doing. One of them is that the early talks of it was somewhat about it being a TV series. And then from there, they started talking also about how they were kind of inspired by what the MCU is doing with a shared cinematic universe. So just kind of discussions, not saying that that's what they're doing, but some ideas that influenced where they might be interested in going with this, since it's the year 2017 and every studio is very interested in coming up with their own shared cinematic universe. So if you want the full details, I have the link below in the description. With all that said, what are your initial thoughts to the idea of a reboot, a remake of The Matrix? I guess it also mentioned in there that the Wachowskis right now aren't on board with it. They're hoping to get their blessing. There's some back and forth because the main producer guy on it, Joel Silver, has some beefs with the Wachowskis, and so there's a little bit of political tension type stuff about whose blessing they're trying the hardest to get for the project. But with all that said, what's your take on all this? Tell me in the comment section, because I would love to talk with you about this, because, man, if ever there's a story that can get me a little bit excited, it is this one. With all that said, let's get into my thoughts on this. Oh, man, this is such a bad idea. It's a horrible idea. Now, many horrible ideas have turned into good movies. The Lego movie is a terrible idea for a movie that turned into a great movie. So it's not unheard of for a bad idea to turn into something great. However, in this particular case, I don't know how you do this and even bring something worthwhile to make its existence have a reason to exist. Simple fact of the matter is that the original Matrix has aged incredibly well. Besides the fashion sense in the music, what do you update? What do you do to make this better? What can be changed? What needs to be changed for the date? I mean, there's landlines in it, but it took place, the part of it took place in the late 90s, so there were landlines at the time, so you could update that a little bit, and you could have slight updates in the phone technology for smartphones. But that's such a small kind of piece to it. There's just not much that you can update to improve on a beloved film. The special effects hold up. It's such a specific, impassioned vision for what it is. Like, its existence came about because two siblings had a passion for martial arts movies and sci-fi and anime, and they meshed it all in together, not as like, let's make a bunch of money. They just made a thing that they loved, poured everything they had into it, and then we get this movie that other people loved. It's bizarre that it works. It's bizarre that it got made, but it did, and it was great. Now, take that and you make it just like this studio thing. So, all right, who's worked on some big stuff that they work with studios well? They've written some great scripts. Zach Penn, oh yeah, he worked on all the. Okay, yeah, let's get him to do it. Who's a name that would be like perfect for casting in a movie like this? Michael B. Jordan, hot as can be. I mean, he's got the Creed franchise. He's going to be in Black Panther. I mean, this is the guy that you got to get if you're going to do something like this. Hey, someone walked in and wanted to join me. But I mean, with that said, there's just not a thing to be added here that any movie fan benefits from this. You can see where the studio can make money off of it, because I'll go see it. I'll go check it out. It's got the name brand recognition that people will go and check it out, at least the first one, but has none of, by anything mentioned in this report, feels like any of the heart and soul that kind of was able to make the original a good movie. And then you kind of go down the list of what they're almost certainly going to do. It'll be PG-13. And it's not that like the first one was this hard R movie that needed to be that, but they made a true auteur's film. They had a very vision for what it was going to be, and therefore they made it rated R, even though they easily could have trimmed things out of it to make it PG-13. But why would you do that? And then you think, in light of the last 20 years of gun violence, they'll tone down the gun violence in it to make sure that it doesn't support the stuff that happened before and the ties that people in the previous claimed that it had to Columbine. All sorts of things where they'll say, well, we can't have them going into a building and just mowing people down. Okay, that's a fair criticism that maybe whether we should or shouldn't do that. But then why make a reboot of a movie that's what the movie was? And is this going to be just another generic big spectacle third act that we have in every blockbuster these days? Because you think about the original one, which has one of the best third acts of all time for an action movie. It's a shootout, foot chase, a little bit of helicopter stunts type stuff, and martial arts battle. So there's a ton of stuff over a long period of time. But compared to modern day spectacle with explosions and CGI messes, it's not... doesn't compare to the world-ending stuff that you see nowadays. It doesn't really even compare all that much to the third act of the third Matrix movie, which obviously is very far and superior. So I just get so nervous when I hear about this and get frustrated because it's just a studio trying to make money. In fact, when I hear that they were considered the idea of doing a TV series out of it, that actually sounds way more interesting to me. Now, not if you're going to throw it on network television, pass. You're going to throw it on the CW, oh goodness, please no. But you get like a really good one of these current TV guys that are brilliant, and you give them great creative control and a great team for HBO, for AMC. But you get one of these big creative guys that's at HBO, that's on Netflix, and you really let them make it do it right. There's actually something new and different you can do with that. You can actually do some cool things. Like the original Matrix film had a budget like $60 million, which isn't small, but it's also not enormous. And so much of it is just hand-to-hand fight scenes and just shootouts. You can do that for Netflix. You can do that for HBO. And because of the long-form storytelling, you could do some really cool stuff with that. And do something, tell the same story, but in a different format and explore things differently. Or you can do a shared universe. I mean, can you just think how terrible of an idea this is and how awful that would be and how fundamentally it doesn't even understand what did and did not work about the original franchise to do a shared universe? Like the first one works because it's a clever idea on this post-apocalyptic mankind versus technology sorts of sci-fi storyline, combined with a cool martial art aesthetic, and then combined with modern day mythology and Christ-like imagery and type things, that when they went to do the other ones, there's like people sitting around talking about philosophy because they're trying to have all the philosophy of the first film in this one, except they didn't have a way to do it. They didn't have a way to have a continuation of the emotional themes and the Christ imagery and things like that for the sequels, and so then they lost something, and you got fake philosophy and goofiness in them and ridiculous ideas. They could not do it like the original people that created the brilliant original could not come up with good sequels. So let's do a shared universe by studio heads. I mean, my mind is blown as to who thinks this is a good idea, who wants this, who thinks they can improve upon this. It seems like the sort of project that some up-and-coming director will say yes to and kill his career because he'll kind of be shunned by the geek community because he would do this project. It's a bad idea. I don't like anything about it. There's that one seed of a sentence in there about, hey, they thought about a TV series that I want. Hey, that could have been interesting, but they're not doing that. They want to do shared universe thing, which is a terrible idea. Everything about this screams studio head reboot project thing. I hate it. So with that said, tell me your thoughts on it. I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with me. I don't know who's going to say, oh yeah, The Matrix, that, they can really update that and make it better. There's not much here to update. It's a terrible idea. But let's talk about it in the comment section. I don't want to just talk about The Matrix. I want to talk about The Matrix with you. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I love to talk about movie news. I review 3 or 4 movies per week. as well as sometimes I do some live stuff. I like to do creative stuff, but really, I like to talk about movies, but more importantly, I like to talk with you about movies. So join me in the comment section, and thank you for watching.